Hello and welcome back to Tyranny Storage Channel. Today I wanted to talk about the Snowflake plotting method, which is the method that I use right now to plot my novels. And I've talked about it a little bit here and there on the channel, but I wanted to go into more detail about it because, like I said, it's one of my favorite methods right now, and it has helped me rewrite the first novel I've been working on for a long time, Project Red, and then it's also helped me start writing Project Void, which is a thing I'm doing for NaNoWriMo this year, or Camp NaNoWriMo. Oh man, it's early yet. So it's helped me write a couple of novels now, and I think it's just such a good way to write because you start with such a small idea and you just keep building and building and building on it like a snowflake, and I think it's really great. I honestly swear by it at this point because it's so easy to use and you can really get into the story without having to just be like, man, where do I even start? So we're just going to jump right into the actual steps. There are about 10 steps to this, but the 10th is just writing your story, so it's not really that bad. And in the earlier steps, there is a little more to say about them, but we're just going to get right into it. So the first step is to take an hour to write a one-sentence summary of your novel. And shorter is better. You should definitely try for like 15 words or less, and you want to describe your characters rather than using their names if you already have them. And then the questions you want to ask yourself are which character has the most to lose, and then tell us what they want to win. And then reading one-line blurbs from like best-selling novels is really good for examples to get an idea of how people are crafting these one-sentence summaries. Because 50,000 plus words condensed into 15 or less words seems like a really hard thing to do, but honestly, it's not too bad. So that's the first step. The second step is going to be to take another hour after that to expand your one-sentence summary into a full paragraph. So you're going to describe the story setup, the major disasters in the ending of the novel, and it helps to look at it as a paragraph that shows the 3 disasters and an ending, because each disaster takes about a quarter of the novel, and then the ending takes the last quarter. And then if you're using the Save the Cat story sheet, or you're doing the 3-act structure, the first disaster is going to be at the end of Act 1, and you want it to be caused by internal or external forces. It doesn't really matter which, but the second disaster is going to be at the midpoint of Act 2, and it should be caused by the protagonist's attempts to fix things. And then the third disaster is going to be at the end of Act 2, and then things just keep getting worse and worse as the protagonist keeps trying to fix things. And then the end of the novel is going to be, obviously, the end of Act 3. And it should have about 4 to 5 sentences, with that breaking down as sentence 1 being the backdrop of the story. Sentences 2 through 4 are going to be 1 sentence for each disaster, like what they are, what's happening. And then sentence 5 is going to tell the ending of the story. Like, how does it turn out? Do the heroes win? Do they not? You know, what happens there? So that's step 2. In step 3, you're going to take each of your main characters and take an hour to write a 1-page summary that tells the character's name, a 1-sentence summary of the character's storyline, the character's motivation, like what do they want abstractly, the character's goal, what do they want concretely, the character's conflict, what prevents them from reaching that goal, and then their epiphany, which is what will they learn or how will they change. And then at the end of those questions, you want a 1-paragraph summary of the character's storyline. So step 3 is a little bit longer, and it has a little bit more steps to it, but that's just because you're building on your story and you need characters for a story, so you're going to work on the characters. And then you might want to go back and revise your 1-sentence or 1-paragraph summary after writing your 1-page character summaries. But that's okay. It just means the characters as you're writing about them are teaching you things about your story along the way, which is great. You want to learn as much as you can before you get to the first draft. Very important. So that's step 3. Going into step 4, we're going to take several hours to expand each sentence of your summary paragraph, your one paragraph summary, and you're going to give each sentence its own paragraph. And all but the last paragraph should end in a disaster, and the final paragraph should tell how the book ends, and then the paragraphs should be about 1 full page, but I mean, they can be longer. I believe mine is longer in my story currently because I just had a lot more to say because I've been writing this for about 5 years, actually 6 now. So really take your time on this step too, and I mean all the steps. Really take your time to think about what you want your story to be and where you want it to go, because as you keep, making this bigger and bigger, you're gonna, learn things as you go. So that's pretty cool. So that was step 4, writing your 1-page summary. Step 5 is to take 1 to 2 days, which is a long time, to write a 1-page description for each of your main characters and a half-page description for any other important characters. So these should tell the story from the point of view of each character individually. This is when you add depth to your character, and you should include as much information as you can. And this is another step where you're going to have your characters teaching you about themselves. You're going to learn where they have weaknesses, strengths, things like that. So this is the step that you're going to learn the most about your characters, other than actually writing the story and putting them in situations. But this is a very important step because you need to know your characters in a really big way to know what kind of things they would be doing in the story, how they would react to things, what kind of things they would say, things like that. So definitely take your time on this step. And then step 6 is going to be to take a week to expand your 1-page plot synopsis that you just wrote, and then turn that into a 4-page synopsis. So each paragraph that you wrote, you're going to expand it even more, and each paragraph is going to get about its own page. So it might end up being 5 pages, but 4 pages is pretty much the norm. As you come up with new ideas, you're definitely going to want to cycle back to earlier steps as you work those ideas in, because that's how this whole thing works, is the snowflake keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you just kind of fill in those spaces on earlier steps so that you know, oh, this character is doing this. Oh, okay, this is what's going on here. So that one is pretty straightforward. You're just making that 1 page into 4 pages. And then step 7 is going to be to take another week to expand your character's descriptions into full-fledged character charts detailing everything there is to know about each character. You can use for main characters and minor characters, or just main characters. Doesn't really matter. Depends on how you feel like doing your story. For me, I only did main characters for this because it takes a long time to do. But, you can do it however you want. And this should be an outline of the character and their lives, and you can never have too much detail here. It's every single thing you can think of, like their birth date, physical description, history, motivations, goals, etc. And the most important question you're going to want to include is, how will this character change by the end of the novel? And this is an expansion of step 3, and will teach you a lot more about your characters, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get these characters concrete and understand them fully before we start writing a book about said characters. So that's step 7. Step 8 is going to be to take your 4-page synopsis that you wrote and make a list of all the scenes you're going to need to turn the story into a novel. And the easiest way that I've found to do this is with a spreadsheet, which, Excel, big scary, but I promise it's really not that hard to use at all. You just make the columns you need, you go down the line, write your scenes, And that's about it. You don't need anything fancy about it or anything like that. But the way I do it is I have 4 columns. I put the character's point of view in one column, the time of day in the next, and then I have a larger column to write what happens in that section. And then in the last column, I usually put what the word count is because I use it to keep up with how long my novel is and how long chapters and scenes are. And the spreadsheet is ideal because you can see the whole storyline at a glance, and then it's easier to move scenes around and reorder things and stuff like that. And then when you're done writing out all the scenes, you can add another column for chapter numbers to assign a chapter to each. And you don't have to do that, but sometimes it can help to be like, oh, these scenes are going to be in this chapter, and then the next chapter is going to comprise of these, or there's only going to be one scene in this chapter because it's really long. Stuff like that. So it's really not that bad. And then a novel usually contains between 50 and 100 scenes, and a scene usually takes place in one location, and we'll see the characters changing or learning something new in that time. And this is really good to write before you start writing your novel too, because then you can see, oh, this scene's not necessary, they're really not even doing anything, or this one's really important, I definitely want to put this one in, but I want to move it up here or down here. Maybe this should happen before this stuff. Stuff like that. You can figure all of those things out before you start writing your story to make it a lot easier. Step 9, I'll probably do it for this second story I'm writing, but the first one, I already had an idea of the story because I'd been writing and rewriting it for, probably like, I guess it's 6 years earlier. I think it's something like that, 6 years. So I didn't really need to do step 9, but I probably will for this new story I'm writing that I don't have any idea about. As I'm going through this, I learn as I go. But step 9 is to write a narrative description of the story. So you're going to take each line of your spreadsheet, so each scene of your spreadsheet, and expand it into a multi-paragraph description of the scene. And then if you think of any cool lines of dialogue or setting descriptions, these are the times to add them, because trust me, you won't remember. You will not remember them later. So if you think of anything really cool, this is the time to add them. Maybe you'll work them in later, maybe you won't, who knows, but they're good to have there just in case. And I think for this new story I'm writing, I'm definitely gonna do the narrative description of the story with the scene order, because that's basically you're writing a zero draft of your story in step 9. And you can take this, print it, or you can use the comments feature markup on Microsoft Word, which I don't know how to use, I'd have to learn. But you can figure out what, is working in the story, where things need to go, what's going on, when, who's, doing what. So, I think step 9 is a really good idea. I just didn't need it for the first story I've been writing for so long, but the second one I definitely think I will probably use it. And then step 10 is, it's not really a step, but it's a step. Now it's finally time to sit down and write your story. So after you have all of this stuff already done and you can look back on it as you go, you can actually start to write your story, and you'll find that the words come a lot faster because you already know the story. It's already in your head. It's already, the wheels are turning. You just got to type them out and write the story in a more detailed narrative than step 9. So you're just taking step 9 and upping it again and adding dialogue and adding, settings and what the characters are doing, how they're reacting to things like that. So all in all, I think this method is probably one of the best I've seen because it gives you so much room to work the story out before you start actually writing the story. And I feel like that's so important when you're sitting down to write a story, because I used to pants my novels. When I wrote Project Red the first 3 times, I did not have an outline or anything. I would just, alright, I'm writing this chapter today, or I'm just gonna start typing and see what happens. But I've started to learn over the last 6 years that structure is important for writing a story, because you have to know where you've been and where you're going and where you are right now in the story, or you're just gonna be confused and you're gonna be like, oh, when did this happen? I have no idea. So this is one of the best methods I've seen lately, and I will swear by it until I find something better, but I have not, and I love it. I found it a few years ago, and I think it's great. It's fantastic. Let me know down in the comments how you guys plot your novels, or if you don't at all and you enjoy pantsing and you can keep it all together in your head, which I cannot. I have notebooks upon notebooks that I've used to write down my entire story stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.